Minister Adel Al-Jubeir. This is his first TV interview here in the United States since becoming foreign minister. He was Saudi Arabia's longtime ambassador here to the United States. Foreign Minister, thanks very much for coming in.
Thank you for having me, Wolf.
All right, so why isn't the king coming?
We explained the situation. We announced a humanitarian ceasefire in Yemen that will take effect tomorrow at 11 p.m. We also, the custodian of the two holy mosques is very keen on making sure that the ceasefire holds and that humanitarian supplies can be sent into Yemen efficiently and quickly. He will also be launching the King Salman International Center for Humanitarian Relief to Yemen in Riyadh that will be a focal point for coordinating all these relief efforts in Yemen. And so the decision was that it was not a good time for him to be leaving when we have so many things going. The Kingdom of Saudi Arabia will be represented by His Royal Highness the Crown Prince, who's also the Minister of Interior. Also participating will be His Royal Highness the Deputy Crown Prince, who's the Minister of Defense.
But it would have been a much better summit at Camp David and at the White House if the king would have come. And as recently as Friday, U.S. officials thought he was coming.
The decision on the ceasefire and the timing of the ceasefire was not made until Friday evening, and it was after that that the decision was made that the custodian of the two holy mosques would deputize his crown prince to come to the U.S. Wolf, I want to lay to rest this notion of this being a snub or a problem in the relationship.
You really think there's a ceasefire?
We hope it will hold. We will find out tomorrow night at 11 p.m. and we hope that it will continue so that we can send relief supplies into Yemen to help the Yemeni people. But the decision of whether or not the ceasefire holds rests with the Houthis and their allies.
What about the fact that he's 79 years old, has had some ailments? Was it a health factor as well?
Not at all. No, Wolf, not at all. And as I was saying earlier, this idea that this is in any way a snub or reflects a problem in the relationship has no basis in fact. The Saudi Crown Prince has always represented the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. In 2003, then Crown Prince Abdullah represented the kingdom at the G8 summit in Europe, and nobody thought anything different about it. The current king, when he was Crown Prince, represented the kingdom at the G20 summit in Australia last year.
But with all due respect, Foreign Minister, why did he accept to begin with, then, if he could have deputized the Crown Prince, the Minister of Intelligence, others to come in instead? Why did he lead the U.S. to believe he would be here this week?
Well, the circumstances in Yemen were such that it was changing. Our cities were attacked in Najran and in Jizan. The ceasefire was announced, the timing of the ceasefire was announced, and so the circumstances had changed.
You know that 6 leaders were supposed to be here. The president got RSVPs from all 6. 4 regrets, 2 acceptances. That sounds like a snub to me, that these leaders from the Gulf Cooperation Council, the Sunni Arab states in the Gulf who are obviously very fearful of Iran, they've decided not to come to this meeting.
I don't think so at all, Wolf. I think in the case of Saudi Arabia, this is unprecedented that we have the Crown Prince and the Deputy Crown Prince attending a function outside the kingdom at the same time. This is the number 2 person and the number 3 person in our hierarchy. One deals with security and interior ministry. The other manages the defense ministry. So all of the issues that we will be discussing at Camp David, whether it's counterterrorism, whether it's enhancing security and military cooperation between the GCC and the US, and whether it's countering the activities of Iran in the region, those 2 individuals are the key personalities in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia.
You've heard all the speculation. This is really about Iran, the nuclear deal that seems to be in the works. You don't like it, the UAE doesn't like it, Kuwait doesn't like it, Bahrain, none of these Gulf states, Sunni Gulf states like it. You were seeking military assurances, defense security assurances from the United States in the weeks leading up to this summit, and there's a lot of thought out there you weren't getting what you wanted, and as a result, the king said, I'm not coming.
There's a lot of speculation, Wolf, but let me assure you of one thing. First of all, everybody wants a nuclear deal with Iran that's airtight, that prevents Iran from acquiring a nuclear capability, that has intrusive inspections long-term. Everybody wants this, and the first countries that want this are the GCC countries. And so we would welcome a deal that provides this and that provides assurances that Iran will not be able to acquire a nuclear capability. The framework agreement that has been signed is a framework agreement. The details are still to be discussed over the coming 6 weeks or so. We have been assured by the United States that the US and the P5+1 countries will do everything they can in order to make sure that any deal that is reached will not allow Iran to have a nuclear weapon. And that's something that we would welcome. With regards to the security assurances from the US, we have no doubt whatsoever about America's commitment to the security of Saudi Arabia. The relationship was established in terms of the security area when the late King Abdulaziz met with President Roosevelt in 1945. Over the past 7 decades, we have never for a moment questioned America's commitment to the security of Saudi Arabia. And we've seen it play out in the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s. We saw it when the US sent 500,000 troops to defend Saudi Arabia and then subsequently liberate Kuwait from Iraq's occupation. And we see it today in the ongoing operations that we have in Yemen.
Are you seeking major non-NATO ally status from the United States as a reassurance in the face of what's going on with the Iran nuclear deal?
Like I said, we are working with the United States in order to take the relationship between the US and the GCC to a higher level. The relationship, in fact, is at a higher level. Now we have to make sure that the policy...
Is the Obama administration ready to give Saudi Arabia major non-NATO ally status?
I can't talk about the specifics or the details of what will or what will not happen. But what I can assure you is that the relationship, especially in the security and military areas, is rock solid, and that both sides will do everything they can to further strengthen and enhance those ties.
All right, I want you to stand by, Foreign Minister. We have more to discuss. A lot of sensitive issues out there, including ISIS, the threat here in the United States, the threat to Saudi Arabia, and beyond. Much more with the new Foreign Minister of Saudi Arabia right after this. Breaking now, the White House strongly denying any snub is involved, even though Saudi Arabia's king will not be attending President Obama's summit at Camp David with other members of the Gulf state this week. We're back with Saudi Arabia's newly appointed Foreign Minister, Adel Al-Jubeir, once again, his first TV interview as Foreign Minister. Minister, we're just getting word now from the White House that President Obama called King Salman just a little while ago. They had a phone conversation. I understand you were in on that call.
Yes, His Majesty wanted to, the custodian of Holy Mosques wanted to speak with the President. They were able to arrange the call very quickly. That happened at 4 o'clock.
Who initiated the call?
Both sides. I mean, it's the two leaders have a very close personal relationship. They first met when King Salman was Crown Prince and was Minister of Defense and visited Washington in 2010. And then the President came to offer condolence, was the first official guest that King Salman received after becoming king. And he also used it as an opportunity to offer condolences on the passing of King Abdullah. They speak on the telephone frequently and they communicate various ways with messages back and forth. And I think that the relationship they have is a very warm relationship and a lot of mutual respect. And they're very frank and candid with each other. Did
President Obama express his regret, his disappointment that the king could not be here this week?
Of course not. Absolutely not. The President expressed his understanding for the step that King Salman took, and he expressed his welcome for the Crown Prince and the Deputy Crown Prince. The custodian of the two holy mosques expressed his regret at not being able to come given the circumstances of the ceasefire and the opening up of the Center for International Relief.
All right, so the ceasefire is supposed to begin tomorrow in Yemen. Do you believe the Houthi rebels, backed by Iran, you say they're backed also by Hezbollah, that they will honor a ceasefire?
I hope so. It's really entirely up to them. I can't say whether they will or will not, but we will see. Time will tell.
Is Iran and Hezbollah directly involved in the civil war in Yemen?
Absolutely no doubt about it. There are Iranian operatives in Yemen. There are Hezbollah operatives in Yemen. The Houthis have received weapons from the Iranians. They have advisors from Hezbollah. In fact, when the Houthis first captured Sana'a, one of the first things they did was release Iranian and Hezbollah operatives from the jails.
What if they don't honor the ceasefire? What's Saudi Arabia going to do?
We will try whatever we can in order to minimize any kind of operations. But if push comes to shove and they do not honor the ceasefire, then there will be no humanitarian pause.
There'll be no what?
No humanitarian pause.
No pause at all. How worried are you right now about the ISIS threat to Saudi Arabia? Obviously, U.S. officials are very concerned about an ISIS threat to the U.S. homeland. How strong is ISIS?
Very strong. We see them in Syria. We see them in Iraq. We've arrested hundreds of people in Saudi Arabia, which we have made public. They are determined to cause mischief and to murder people. And we have to all be very, very vigilant in going after them, after those who support them, and after those who finance them. You saw Tom Friedman's interview with President Obama in early April, in which the president was very blunt, suggesting the real threat to Saudi Arabia is not Iran or other outside parties. The real threat to Saudi Arabia is internally. Let me play the clip. This is the president speaking to Tom Friedman.
But I think the biggest threats that they face may not be coming from Iran invading. It's going to be from dissatisfaction inside their own countries. Now that disentangling that from real terrorist activity inside their country, how we sort that out, how we engage in the counterterrorism cooperation that's been so important to our own security without automatically legitimizing or validating whatever repressive tactics they may employ. I think that's a tough conversation to have, but it's one that we have to have.
A lot of people were very concerned in Saudi Arabia and some of the other Gulf states when they heard the president speaking like that. Your reaction?
I didn't take it as addressing it to Saudi Arabia in particular. We have had a country that's been developing over the past 70, 80 years. We have been able to double life expectancy rates in one generation. We have been able to reduce infant mortality rates from the levels of sub-Saharan Africa to the levels of Europe. We have universal education. When my father was born, his life expectancy was 37. When he passed away at 85, my youngest sister's life expectancy was over 70. So it doubled in one generation. When my father went to school, 9 out of 10 of his colleagues were illiterate, could not go to school. Now we have universal education. We look at women's education. 55% of college students in Saudi Arabia are women. Over 60% of women in graduate students in Saudi Arabia are women. So any way you look at it, it's a country that's been progressing, that's been moving forward, that has been taking care of its people. And I think the proof that the Gulf monarchies are doing the right thing is the fact that after 2011, all the convulsions that we saw all around us did not impact
But
us.
women can't even drive cars in Saudi Arabia.
This is an issue that has to do with the nature of the society, and in time, this issue will resolve itself.
How much time?
I can't predict time. I'm not a prophet.
But are you making progress on that front? Women right now, without an escort from an uncle or a father or a brother, they can't even go out on their own.
That's not correct. They can. And women in Saudi Arabia have made great strides when it comes to education. I pointed that out. More than 50% of students in colleges are women. When it comes to job opportunities, when it comes to the ability to have a business, to obtain credits, to have loans, I think women in Saudi Arabia are way ahead of women in other developing countries.
When you were here a few weeks ago, when you were still the Saudi ambassador to the United States, we spoke about Iran. You were obviously worried, like so many others in the region, about an Iran nuclear program that's underway. You said, in your words, the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia will take whatever measures are necessary in order to protect its security. When I asked you if you were ruling out Saudi Arabia itself developing a nuclear military capability in the face of a threat from Iran, what's your position now?
It's still the same. We will do whatever it takes to protect our people and our country. We will have to see what is needed in order to do so, and we will make decisions at the right time.
You want a good deal with the Iran nuclear program, but what if it isn't a good deal? What if it doesn't meet your appreciation, your satisfaction?
I don't. We have had extensive briefings by Secretary Kerry and by Secretary Moniz and by officials in the Treasury Department about the deal or that is in the process of being negotiated. Understand, Wolf, that the deal is not in place yet, and it may not be concluded. But the objectives that they're trying to achieve are objectives that would deny Iran the ability to acquire a nuclear weapon, that would have intrusive and continuous inspections on Iran and unprecedented inspections. So in principle, this is something that everybody wants. But the details and whether Iran will accept the conditions that will be placed upon it are still up in the air. The Iranians, it's up to the Iranians to make the decisions on whether or not they want those to accept the details that are being offered. So far, they haven't. One
final question. The tens of billions of dollars that Iran is going to get, a bonanza, once this deal goes through with the sanctions eased or lifted, you have a problem with that?
Everybody does. We hope that the Iranians will use any sanctions relief in order to improve the lot of their people and improve their infrastructure. We fear that they may use it for nefarious activities, and we will be watching it very closely. And one of the items that will be discussed at Camp David is how we can blunt Iran's interference in the affairs of the countries of the region. And we look forward to that conversation very much.
Adel Al-Jubeir is the Foreign Minister of Saudi Arabia. Congratulations on your new job. How are you liking it so far?
Thank you. It's been very busy.
2 weeks, right?
1 week. Last Monday was my swearing in.
Okay, well, congratulations once again.
Thank you.
Good luck to you. Adel Al-Jubeir is the Foreign Minister of Saudi Arabia.